Tonio Delgado balanced on the last rung of an iron fire escape, the soles of his sneakers caked with 8 colors of spray paint dust and the rust of 2 decades' rain. It was past 3 in the morning, the usual hour when delivery trucks and insomnia shared the streets, and he had chosen the south wall of the abandoned Rialto Theater for his latest revolt of color. 3 quick bursts from the orchid-purple can traced the outline of a trumpet. A wider stroke filled it with midnight blue. Next came the domino table, 2 tiles tipping forward as if caught by laughter. Finally, above them all, Tonio shaped the neighborhood guardian he had been sketching in notebooks for months. A winged alley cat, wearing a crown made of bent bottle caps. He drew hungry, as though every hiss of paint were a heartbeat, as though he could coat the entire city before dawn chased him home. That, of course, was impossible, especially now that Anton Gray had come to East Mira. Gray called himself a developer, but everyone who had lived here longer than a season knew better. The man was a sorcerer of the expensive corporate variety, gold cufflinks, imported suits, spells branded with tidy little logos. He bought up buildings, repainted them in soothing neutrals, and replaced corner bodegas with boutiques that sold scented candles for the price of 2 bags of rice. Tonio's aunt, Mama Esther, who still kept the family botanica on Glass Street, used to remember the name of every baby in the barrio. Since Gray bought the whole block and began renovation, she forgot a new one each week, the memories leaking from her eyes like rain down a cracked window. Some said Gray carried an obsidian monocle that let him see every history clinging to a brick. Others whispered that he kept tiny glass files in a briefcase, each swirling with someone else's childhood. What Tonio knew for certain was that rents had doubled and the laughter outside the bodega had gone quiet. He climbed down, shook the paint cramps from his wrist, and admired the finished piece. The trumpet player's cheeks bulged with breath, the domino champions hovered mid-slap, and the alley cat arched magnificently. They were moments East Mira could still remember. Tonio's memories, Mama Esther's memories, and the neighborhood's. Fragments Gray hadn't stolen, not yet. A cold wind rolled off the river, and Tonio zipped his hoodie. He photographed the mural with his phone, muttered a promise to return tomorrow, and slipped into the warren of back streets that led to his apartment. He left behind wet paint and silence. At 11:59 p.m. that same night, a hush swept from rooftop to rooftop, as though the whole barrio inhaled at once. No sirens, no stray headlights, just the Rialto Theater wall gleaming faintly under the street lamp's flicker. When the clock tower in neighboring Harborton struck 12, the purple trumpet trembled. Gold light pooled in its bell, then spilled out like liquid song. The painted dominoes rattled, and the alley cat opened its eyes the color of bottle glass a child has held up to the sun. The cat stretched, sprang from brick to sidewalk, and landed without a splash despite being made entirely of pigment. The domino men followed, their painted feet smudging into shoes, their laughter now a real echo. Last came the trumpet player, her first note a swirling column of sound that made lampposts shiver. "Midnight," the cat announced, its voice a scratchy purr that held 20 different dialects of East Mira. "Time for the march." They set off along the block, moving from wall to fence to shutter in a parade of living paint. When they reached the Botanica, a new figure peeled from the rolling iron gate, Mama Esther's own mural, La Curandera, draped in marigolds and smoke. She joined them silently, her eyes lit with sage embers. Above, unseen, Tonio tossed on his futon, dreaming of color that wouldn't dry. The following evening, Tonio returned to the Rialto just after sunset to see whether his lines had been tagged or buffed. Instead, he found streaks of empty brick. The cat's crown remained, but the cat itself was gone. The trumpet floated alone, its mouthpiece dribbling paint tears. Tonio's heart hammered. He searched the alley for city cleanup crews or rival taggers, but found only footprints he couldn't quite focus on, as though whoever left them hadn't decided what shape to take. "Someone jacked my mural," he muttered. "Not someone," answered a voice behind him. "Something." Tonio spun. The alley was empty. Then a scrap of shadow detached from the far wall. It coalesced into the alley cat, smaller than before, but indisputably alive, rippling with the colors Tonio had sprayed, its green glass eyes fixed on him. You painted us, it said. Now we need you. Tonio stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a busted crate. I'm hallucinating. Shouldn't have used the cheap mask filters. Not hallucination, the cat replied, cleaning one paw with a delicate stroke. Art, story, memory, all the same spell, really? Tonio stared. How are you here? Gray, the cat hissed, the name a splatter of black across every syllable. He steals memories, bottles them, sells them to investors who want neighborhoods without the bothersome people. Tonight he will finish draining East Mira. The last thing he harvested was Mama Esther's recipe for prayer candles. She can't even remember the smell of cinnamon oil now. The cat's tail flicked, leaving a swipe of color on the concrete that quickly faded. Your murals hold what he hasn't taken yet. We slipped out before he could. Tonio's denial crumbled. Aunt Esther's confusion, the vanishing laughter, the city blocks repainted in forgettable beige. It all lined up like dominoes. What do you want from me? Help us protest, said the cat. Not with petitions or legal filings, with louder color, with every wall in East Mira singing at midnight. It raised luminous eyes. We must remind people of what Gray tries to erase. If enough remember, his spell breaks. But we need a painter's hands. Tonio looked at the cat, then at the half-vanished mural, and felt a hot coal of purpose ignite behind his ribs. All right, he said. Let's give the bastard something he can't whitewash. They began on Paloma Street, where the city had recently removed the last payphone. Tonio sketched a giant receiver woven from telephone cords into which dozens of residents whispered a lullaby in Tagalog, Spanglish jokes, a blues chorus that rattled window panes. As he sprayed, the paint shimmered like watered silk. The cat perched on a trash can, directing. More green in the child's jacket? She always played near the park bench under the poplar, and the old man's smile needs gold. He sold piraguas every summer. By midnight, the new mural vibrated with history. When the clock struck 12, the figures slid from brick to pavement and set off, their whispered memories swirling overhead like kites. On Mirabel Avenue, Tonio painted the annual street ball game. 5 kids suspended mid-jump, asphalt dust sparkling around their sneakers. They leapt from the wall at the stroke of midnight, dribbling an invisible ball that bounced with the echo of 100 real games. Every night for a week, the procession grew. Salsa dancers from the underpass twirled beside a graffiti preacher whose sermon was made of subway rumbles. A marching band made entirely of spray paint dots kept time with staccato bursts of light. And always the alley cat led them, tail high like a standard. Word spread in waking hours, too. People woke to find their childhood hideouts depicted in sudden murals. Their grandparents sang, scrawled in radiant hand styles. A sensation of déjà vu blossomed. Memories long suppressed fluttered back like startled pigeons. Gray noticed. One morning, a glossy flyer appeared on every stoop. Heritage Square. A visionary mixed-use community. Ribbon cutting, Friday midnight. All residents invited. Nobody remembered agreeing to any such square, but they recognized the address, the decaying community center where, 40 years ago, abuelas had hosted domino tournaments and kids took free dance lessons. The same center Gray's LLC had bought 6 months earlier and wrapped in scaffolding, promising a revitalized cultural space. Tonio felt the cat bristle when he read the flyer. Gray is accelerating, it said. He'll bottle the last memories during his ceremony, while everyone's distracted by speeches. We crashed the ceremony, Tonio answered, pulse racing. One final mural, big enough for the whole city. On the afternoon of the ribbon cutting, clouds the color of wet cement crowded the horizon. Tonio lugged 3 crates of paint to the community center, dodging security drones that floated like chrome ravens overhead. The scaffolding was draped in a canvas wrap printed with corporate renderings. Tonio found a gap and slipped behind it, heart hammering loud as a bass drum. He set down his crates, chose a can, and began. He painted the center as it was before the leaks, before the floorboards buckled. Murals of Puerto Rican giberos danced alongside Ethiopian coffee ceremonies. Chinese ribbon dancers intertwined with West African drummers. Tonio added details he'd only heard in stories, like the time a thunderstorm cut the power and the whole neighborhood finished the salsa contest by candlelight. He laced every image with a thread of living color the cat had taught him to conjure, a pigment that remembered the way a moment felt rather than just how it looked. By dusk, security spotted him. A guard in a silver blazer grabbed his arm. "That's unauthorized art, sir. You're defacing company property." "No," Tonio replied, voice steady despite the adrenaline. "I'm repairing community property." He raised the can and blasted a line of vermilion across the guard's jacket. The paint fizzed, then hardened into a serpentine ribbon that pinned the man to the rail. Tonio hadn't known the spray could do that. The art seemed to be teaching itself new tricks. He kept working. The alley cat appeared, sprinting along the plank walkway, herding a troop of living graffiti behind it. Salsa dancers, trumpet player, domino men. The payphone whispers swirling above them like aurora. They poured onto the rap, disappearing into Tonio's unfinished images, reinforcing them from the inside. The guard shouted for reinforcements. More silver jackets arrived, gloves sparking with purchased magic. Tonio's fingers flew. With each line, a fresh memory soldier leapt from brick or tarp, amassing an army of color. At 11:50 p.m., Anton Gray emerged on a temporary balcony erected for the ceremony. He wore a tailored charcoal coat fastened by a single black gemstone brooch. In one hand, he carried a silver microphone. In the other, a briefcase flickering with restrained light. Memories, trapped and pleading. The monocle over his left eye glowed amethyst. He surveyed the riot of paint blooming around his development and frowned. "Enough," Gray declared, his voice amplified by unseen spells. "This neighborhood asked for progress. I am progress. And you, Mr. Delgado, are trespassing." Tonio wiped sweat from his brow. "Progress that costs our past isn't progress." Gray tapped the gemstone brooch. A wave of ash-colored wind surged from the balcony, erasing a 20-foot section of Tonio's mural. The salsa dancers nearest the gust shrieked as their legs dissolved back into pigment. Tonio's resolve wavered, but the alley cat butted his ankle. "He cannot erase what the barrio remembers together. Paint, Tonio." Tonio raised two cans at once, crossing streams of turquoise and gold. They fused into a spiral of humming color that rebounded Gray's wind, repainting the erased section in an instant. The domino men reformed, slamming tiles with triumphant clacks. Gray's monocle flashed. He flipped open the briefcase. Inside, files whirled like fireflies in a jar. With a gesture, he uncorked 3. Vapors of children's laughter, cooking aromas, and secret first kisses rose, then streaked toward the mural like homing missiles, ready to be re-imprisoned. The alley cat sprang onto a scaffold beam. "Trumpet!" it cried. The trumpet player appeared, lifted her instrument, and loosed a note so brilliant the streetlights dimmed in embarrassment. The sound became a shield, catching the vapors and redirecting them into the painted mouth of the payphone receiver. The whispers inside fused with the laughter and music, growing thunderous. Gray snarled. "You can't keep what doesn't belong to you." "Exactly," Tonio shot back, voice ragged. "Give it back." He switched to black and white, sketching chains that broke themselves, keys melting into butterflies. Each link undone sent a crack through Gray's briefcase. Files shattered, memories burst forth, swirling over the balcony in a cyclone of color and sound, seeking the people who had lost them. Across East Mira, residents looked up from late-night TV, double shifts or restless dreams as memories returned. Mama Esther recalling the cinnamon oil scent, barbers remembering every nickname they'd ever heard, teenagers retrieving the secret routes of first love. A collective gasp hummed through the streets. The cat's eyes gleamed. Now. Tonio uncapped his final can, the one he had filled with homemade pigment ground from brick dust, river clay, and the crumbled petals of the marigolds Aunt Esther kept over her storefront. He sprayed a single word across the community center facade, letters tall as telephone poles. Recordemos. Let us remember. The word blazed, illuminating the entire block. Every mural Tonio had painted that week, every scrap of living graffiti, echoed the command. Color pulsed like a heartbeat through East Myra's labyrinth of walls, fences, and rooftops. Remember. Remember. Gray staggered, his monocle cracked. Behind him, the The sleek renderings of Heritage Square flickered, then peeled away, revealing the still solid bones of the community center beneath the scaffolding, refusing to be anything else. The silver jackets guarding him found their gloves inert, their least magic canceled. They backed away, suddenly just tired people in expensive uniforms. The alley cat leapt onto the balcony rail. "Leave, thief of yesterdays! This place knows itself again." Gray's shoulders slumped. The gemstone brooch dulled to charcoal. He muttered a curse that wilted mid-syllable, then turned and descended the temporary staircase, each step slower than the last, until he vanished into the night. A man-shaped vacancy. Midnight bells finished chiming. The wind changed. It carried roasting garlic scent from a cafe thought lost. The clang of trolley bells decommissioned years before. The low hum of stories beginning their next chapters. Dawn found Tonio sitting cross-legged on the community center roof, legs dangling over the edge, the alley cat curled in a warm heap beside him. The scaffolding remained, but the canvas wrapping had dissolved, replaced by his sprawling mural in full daylight glory. Neighbors gathered below to stare, to point, to say, "I remember that," and "Look, there's Abuelo's chessboard." Mama Esther arrived with a thermos of café con leche. She looked up, tears bright. "Did you paint my old quinceañera shoes in there?" she called. "Couldn't leave them out," Tonio answered, voice hoarse from sleepless nights but bright with pride. She smiled, and the smile did not falter with uncertainty as it had in recent weeks. Whatever Gray had taken, it was back. Not safely bottled in glass, but breathed in and out by every neighbor who recognized the mural and felt something settle into place behind their eyes. The alley cat stretched. Its colors were fading now, the living magic sated. Soon it would return to the wall, another guardian in pigment. It bumped Tonio's hand with its head. "You helped us remember," Tonio said softly. "Thank you." "We helped each other," the cat replied. "But don't stop painting. Memory is work." "I won't." Tonio looked over the skyline. Gray would likely stalk some other burrow in search of blank slates and amnesiac prophets. Someone else would have to fight him there. But here, for now, color held. The cat settled onto the roof's parapet. Sunlight seeped through its translucent form. One by one, the streetball kids, the domino men, the trumpet player, every living mural that had marched in protest, climbed the walls, becoming still images once more. Their freeze-frame poses radiated that humming pigment, invitation, and warning, both. Tonio pocketed an empty spray can. He would refill it. He would fill hundreds. This city would always have new children, new stories, new layers to protect. And memory, he understood now, was like paint. It needed reapplication, brightening, defense against weather, and whitewash. Down on the street, two little girls pointed at the rooftop and squealed. "The cat moved!" Tonio smiled and stood. "Maybe it did," he said. And he climbed back inside the building he and his neighbors would restore together, already tasting the next color he would mix, already hearing the walls murmur, "Tell me more."